Again, welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff here solo Saturday morning. And now we can go through this all over again because I clicked and unclicked the audio button. How embarrassing is that? How embarrassing. But today we're going to get into crypto being a major concern for the banks, for Congress, for central banks as they're developing and spinning off into their own central bank digital currencies, their stable coins. But most importantly, is the emphasis and the focus within the SEC. And we do have some fresh off the press Deaton tweets that we're going to dig into that really have to do with Hinman's speech. And that speech from Hinman keeps coming up over and over and over again. They tried to bury it. They tried to make sure that nobody, found out the truth behind it. And that is one key point that is actually percolating right now with the SEC has obviously is compelled to now hand over that Hinman speech to the court. And Deaton has some really good, perspective, some new perspective on some things that have been happening. Maybe that should have been, the thumbnail, Deaton's new perspective on the SEC case. But we're going to get into that and a whole bunch more. If you guys hang in there, if you guys are ready, I'm ready. We got to kick this thing off. So let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
All right, we're back. And now I'm realizing why the audio wasn't working. And the audio wasn't working. Why? Because we forgot to grab our espresso. So there we go. I just poured a nice, fresh, steaming cup. I don't know if you can see that steam, coming off that cup, but just a nice, fresh cup of Segfredo espresso. It's awesome. So oh, yeah, there you go. There you go. Good stuff. If you haven't done so already, run out there, get your own espresso. We have a ton of stuff to talk about. I love some of these comments. And so I don't know how we can say, hey, if you're here, hang in there for a minute with no audio, and then we get audio. So McSpoony says, usually you guys are on at 5 p.m. Now, I have no idea where you are, but maybe you're over in California, West Coast. And if you're in California, that would make sense. And that in that case, weekdays, Sunday through Thursday, we do stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But that would mean that you're up at 5 a.m. bright and early. So, good stuff. Good stuff here. So, so there you go, live at 5 a.m. So I'm assuming West Coast. There we go. We're putting all the pieces together. This is how we research. You get the fact that is presented to you. You dig into some of the stuff, and we came up with California. So welcome from the left coast, from the West Coast. Appreciate you being here with us. Good stuff. Jared was in here first, and he said, "I've got my coffee smokes ready. Let's do this." And that's important. We gotta get that coffee. If you don't have that coffee, it's going to be really, really difficult. So, all right. So we've got SW. Won't the SEC delay handing over the documents? And when they do, they'll be heavily redacted. You remember those documents that Deaton showed, and they were almost like 90% redacted. There was like nothing left on the page. Now you have to really question, here's an employee of government, a non-elected official that is, again, appointed, and his statements then become complete secrecy to a point where they're redacting information. So the public, those that actually employ this employee that works for government, is not privy to any of the information that was shared. And so SW brings up a good point, such that Ripple will need a court order to see the original documents. And we'll have to get in. It's going to be interesting to see. And since the court is ordering them to show them, maybe in that case, they will have to give the originals. But we'll get into Deaton's tweet and see kind of how he interprets things. I like Dirk is saying, but we're always told XRP is the banker's coin. it's it's interesting too. You get the XRP Mac or the BTC XRP, the Bitcoin maxis. So the Bitcoin maxis have always put this narrative out there, early on, that with the digital asset with XRP, it was always the banker's coin. Why? Because for the most part, it's used for and has the benefit of providing, easy transfer of money, has a baked in exchange, and that exchange can exchange through fiat or through cryptocurrency, any currency for any currency. And that's really, one of the key benefits of what goes on with the XRP ledger. There's obviously a lot more, but, fast transaction, cheap transaction. And so with many of the original products, especially even with like RippleNet, obviously cross border payments was a major emphasis, and cross border payments normally used by banks. So is it a great solution? Yeah. If you're building a solution that is enterprise level, that could get mainstream adoption and utilize the digital asset space, then why would you undermine it and try to mock it by referencing it in kind of an underhanded way? And you think about it, Bitcoin came to fruition. And what was one of the mantras of Bitcoin in the beginning is that it was going to replace banks, that banks would no longer be needed with Bitcoin. And as we've seen the development, and there's some discussion over the Lightning Network, and maybe that helps with the efficiency, the speed, the cost, etc. But if we look at XRP, so with XRP, obviously, has that cheaper mechanism built into it already. But as Bitcoin is developed, it's moved away from being the spendable asset. Although we see El Salvador and now Tonga, and we'll talk about Tonga in a little while, that are adopting Bitcoin as a legitimate form of currency. And from there, maybe we'll see further development and acceptance of other assets within the asset class. But it becomes very, very critical, as we look at this component of it. And so now, as we kind of go 13 years forward, Bitcoin obviously becomes a store of value. And we're seeing many of the bigger financial players out there that are hedging inflation with an investment and putting money directly into Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation. So looking at like MicroStrategy pouring now, I think he holds maybe $6 to $6.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. I mean, that's an amazing number. Now that's through MicroStrategy. That those aren't his personal holdings, but putting that on the balance sheet of a major corporation is a big deal. But then when it comes back to and what we're talking about and referencing this banker coin idea, but so what? If there's a use case for every asset within this asset class, we don't just have Amazon. We have within the class of all these websites and going online, you have many different elements that have built the components of our online world, right? We're not talking about metaverse or anything like that. We're talking about strictly our online world, right? So we have Amazon, we have Google, Yahoo even still exists out there, which is amazing. And then you've got a whole host of, other software products out there that are helping to facilitate our online existence, like, Salesforce and HubSpot. And then you've got, I mean, endless, right? On and on and on and on. Now, could you imagine a world in the crypto space that's trying to build out and you have one product that fits every single need? Now, how is that even possible? How is it that Bitcoin comes to existence as per the Bitcoin maxis, that it's the end all be all? Maybe it was going to be the end all be all of currency. Maybe it's going to replace fiat currency, but that didn't happen, right? And now it's a store of value, but so what? That's the use case it developed into. Maybe as they tweak it and develop it, maybe it is spendable. Like the platform Spend the Bits allows you to easily move Bitcoin, but you're utilizing the XRP ledger, so you're doing it efficiently, you're doing it quickly, and you're doing it cheaply. So you're actually using Bitcoin through another platform that's doing it effectively and efficiently, similar to their idea and concept of the Lightning Network. But then we get into XRP, and you get to the XRP ledger, and you look at the technology, that can build off of the XRP ledger. And it's different than just a store of value. It's different than just everyday consumerism, which is what their idea with Bitcoin was, right? So now we're seeing off of the XRP ledger, you have Flare, and you have the Flare Finance and the Flare Network and the smart contract. And there's so much opportunity that's developing utilizing the XRP ledger. Now, obviously, you've got Ethereum, and that's where going back to the whole conversation with the SEC v Ripple, and there's this seemingly and potentially some underhandedness or some animosity or some favoritism that was seen in the early years. So we can go back to like 2014, but in the early years. And so now we're also looking at, it was Hinman with some of his speeches. Were they purposeful in a unhanded way or in a favoritism way when he was referencing and discussing Ethereum? And then from that point, as they then develop, are his ideas, and was this entire lawsuit of the SEC v Ripple, was it predicated on some opinion and some belief and some adherence to Ethereum? And so that's where I think there's a lot of discontent and a lot of concern over what was happening. And that's where Deaton, has been, continuously drilling down and going after as much detail and information as possible. And that, when we look at, coming up here on Monday, we're going to have Eleanor Terrett with us on Monday, and she has done a tremendous job. She and Charlie Gasparino, a tremendous job at putting together information over this case and really getting, more and more detail on what's going on with, and really highlighting and underscoring some of the things that were going on with Hinman and Jay Clayton. And then kind of extrapolating a lot of that detail and information. So she's going to be with us on Monday, which is going to be really, really exciting. So, and we've had some top congressional representatives here, top in the crypto space, especially, like Tom Emmer and David and Warren Davidson. We've had some astonishing CEOs in the space. And now bringing Eleanor on is it just, it's exciting, because here's someone that is, known in the mainstream media, that has been, spending a considerable amount of time and effort to drill down and try to uncover the truth in everything that has been happening. And so it's going to be a really, really great conversation. So I know you guys have been, posting all sorts of commentary. I'm going to pull that up here in 1 second. And then we're going to go in and we're going to share some of the tweets from John Deaton. So then for some reason, our notification did not go out this morning. And it might be that I posted it a little bit late. So if you guys can do us a favor and try to tweet this out, would be really helpful. And then we'll get things going here. So, but hang on. Good stuff. All right. So Bruce is saying, my prediction is they will settle before trial. Well, if they settle, that means that Chip and I are buying steak dinner. but we don't think that they're going to settle. Therefore, we get a dinner. But yeah, that there's a lot of opinion on that. Are they going to go to settlement? Is it going to be decided by the court? And there's just so much to it. Uh, and so, like Dirk is saying that now, um, Jeremy Hogan has been calling a possible August, September timeline for an end in the case. That really, if we look at this now, they pushed off discovery another month. What does that mean? Yo, exactly. Does that mean that now they're going to have a settlement now after all this time, or does it go further? And there's still a lot there to uncover. Paul Wright saying 1 p.m. in the UK. That's great. You get to listen in the afternoon when it's sunny out, which is really great. So Jared is saying, I pray it's a banker's coin. I want to be able to move my money when and where I want, when I need it right away. Was stuck on hold for 45 minutes with my bank, waiting for them to allow my transaction. How do you like that? So think about some of the issues that go on in kind of the standard uh, mechanisms within, whether it's business transaction or others. But when you try to utilize an ACH or a bank wire, there's zero transparency through that process. Once the transaction is completed on the sender's end, there's zero transparency. No, all you know is that it was sent. You don't know when it's going to arrive. You have a general idea. Maybe they say 3 to 5 days on a bank wire. Maybe on a you can try to do a 4-hour wire, and sometimes domestic, it can happen within 4 hours. If there was an error, then you're not going to know for 4, 5, 6 hours, or maybe not even until the next day when you realize that you didn't get it. But it's very, very problematic, in this modern age of, you would expect that movement of money would have caught up a long time ago, but it's finally catching up. And so there's a little bit of resistance and pushback, to what's been going on. And so that's where, the digital asset space, this asset class, is really astonishing in terms of what it is able to do to improve on, right? We're talking about innovation. Now, we're not talking about significantly changing the behavior of people. What we are talking about, though, is a mechanism to allow for more freedom of movement. So now, at a point in time when we're looking at, and it's amazing because we have so many people passionate about the digital asset space and decentralization, and decentralization equals freedom. So if you're able to freely move your money, freely invest your money where and when you want it, freely earn higher percentages of interest because they're cutting out many of the middlemen byproduct, which is the infrastructure of the financial institutions and the banks that cost a lot of money to operate. So when you're investing, they get their little slice off the top. Now, when you put your money with the bank, for the most part, over the past many number of years, your interest rates are 0.5% if you're lucky, 1% if you're lucky. It's not typically like 1/4% on savings. And that's minuscule. That's, so if you have a smaller amount of money now, if you try to reach out and you look for ETFs, and you're going to go to a trading platform, maybe like a Fidelity, you can find higher rates of return on your money. It does exist out there, but there's always a risk involved. It's not just sticking it in your bank. Now, interesting, if you go to like a Celsius or some of the other products, and there's going to be a lot more building within the DeFi space that say, hey, you know what, you could take, even if you want to put your stable coin, you want to take your USDC and you want to stake it, or you want to just hold it, you can get 8%, 10% interest on your money, even with a stable coin. So you've decreased your risk exposure by putting in a stable coin that isn't going to move much in its valuation against fiat. So you're not going to have the big, 20-30% fluctuations. Maybe digital assets valued more, maybe the fiat's valued more, but you're keeping it tied to your fiat, but you're still able to get 8%, and in some cases 10% on your money, over, and that's obviously calculated, over a year of interest. But still, if you look at that 10%, 8%, I mean, you're getting a decent amount of return every single month. And those types of products are developing at such a rapid rate because now you can stake, and you can wrap, and you can delegate. You can, there's so many investment vehicles now for crypto. To earn on crypto is astonishing. Now, obviously the banks are looking at this, and and they're trying to figure out, how do we catch up? How do we keep up? How do many of the financial institutions keep up with this? Or at some point, are they going to have to then also adopt the technology? They're going to have to join what's happening, because the cat's out of the bag. 13 years ago, the cat came out of the bag, and now I mean, think about it. Think about how this asset class, with starting with Bitcoin, has now developed and kind of spun into this whole new narrative. How, were people contemplating this idea of taking your asset and wrapping it, and then being able to delegate and vote and earn interest, and and then take it and have multi-chain involvement, or a cross chain, or now getting into the gaming space, or the NFTs. And in the beginning stages of NFTs, they're thinking about, well, it's art, right? It's a JPEG. Everyone's like, I don't understand the NFT, the JPEG aspect of it. Why are people so crazed with collectibles? Why years ago did people collect Beanie Babies and spend a fortune on Beanie Babies that, were these little stuffed animals with little bean bags, basically? Why were people spending thousands of dollars on these little creatures, little stuffed animals, and then what were they doing with them? Because then you fast forward and they lost value. It was a fad collectible, but people spent tons and tons of money. Now with the JPEGs, and is this a fad? Are we going through a fad period with NFTs right now? That it's kind of the beginning stages of the NFT technology, to where, if you develop, like, there's been a bunch of NFTs out there, and people go crazy over them. And there's story after story now. Someone puts out an NFT, all of a sudden they sell $1 million worth of that NFT. Obviously, some have made millions upon millions upon millions. These little JPEGs, and people are like, "Well, I can click the JPEG and I can have it on my computer as well," but you don't own it. It's, and we've referenced that before. It's like going into a museum and taking a picture of the Mona Lisa and saying, "Well, I own it. Yeah, I've developed it. I've printed it. I've hung it on my wall, or I bought a poster of the Mona Lisa." It's not the authentic, real version of it. And so we're kind of moving into a digital, forget about the metaverse, because that becomes a whole different subset. But within the NFT space on its own, it's beginning to gain momentum, and it's growing and gaining in its life. And you're seeing a lot of discussion over what is the mainstream adoption over the NFT. What about, ownership? Now imagine if you can, and this is where, everybody obviously knows the direction that NFTs can go within the real estate space, but the simplification of owning title to real estate and having multiple party ownership staked in real estate, and having easy access to the title of that real estate. But then how about an easy vehicle to go in and out of that real estate investment, as an example? So if you can then sell your shares, if it's in the contract, if it more public in nature, you can easily transfer your NFT share of that real estate to somebody else, and you're not bogging down the system. And the technology is really astonishing. And I think that's just like, again, that's just a fragment. So when we go all the way back to the beginning of this notion of where Bitcoin started with this divestment from traditional banking, traditional economy. It was almost like it was a little bit wrong. It wasn't 100% accurate. It was more of a yeah of hoping for anarchy, to where you wanted complete separation from society, to say, well, now Bitcoin is going to be the premier way, and all these other things that are happening within the banking space are irrelevant, and we don't need them anymore, and banks are going to close. And then, when you fast forward to now, and you realize that the banking instruments will always exist. They're going to exist differently. That's the innovation aspect of it, right? Because if the banking instruments don't exist anymore, then how are you going to get a mortgage? How are you going to get a business loan? Who's going to lend you the money if the banking infrastructures and concepts and vehicles don't exist anymore? Now, they're going to change and adapt to the development of technology. You have many of these platforms, many of the exchanges like Bitrue and even Coinbase and within Binance and Celsius, to where they are developing vehicles for you to earn interest on your money, and you can then also borrow against your asset. Now, in the world that we live in, people are not staking or borrowing against collateral. In every scenario, you go buy your car, you're not putting collateral down. Your credit is almost like your quote unquote collateral for when you go and lease a vehicle or buy a vehicle. You get credit, and your credit is paid over a term. So you're not putting up collateral to buy that car or lease that car. Same thing with real estate. You're not necessarily putting up collateral, additional collateral, to buy that real estate. You might have to put money down, but you're getting a mortgage. Obviously, if you default on your mortgage, they take away your property, but you're not putting up addition. So, but there's this idea, within the crypto space, and it's gaining momentum, which is great to see. Where if you have assets and you can then put it as collateral and get a loan against your own asset, and you're paying interest basically to repay yourself, and you're paying interest to the banking infrastructure, right? Whatever that institution might be, to then borrow. It's interesting, and it kind of overcomes many of the burdens of people having to apply for credit, because now you're borrowing against yourself. Now you have something of value to lose if you don't pay it back. So if you're staking 1.5 to 1 or 2 to 1, if you're not paying back the one, you potentially are losing the two. But the good thing is that as you pay it back, you get your two back, right? And so that is a benefit overall, and something newer in this space. But again, it goes back to this idea that without the infrastructure of the banking idea, all of this crypto stuff goes away. It's almost like, will become non-existent for the most part, because all of the tools that are being developed, even like within Flare, people talk about the Flare Finance and the Flare network. You're seeing what's going on with the Songbird, and again through the delegation and earning interest, and all these different exchanges that are you can earn interest from. That's all based in this financial, kind of banking environment. You need a third party to help Main Street retail facilitate these solutions. Now, in part, it could be done through DeFi, through the decentralized platforms, in part, but a good majority of the people do want a centralized location, out of comfort, right? They want peace of mind. They want to know that if there's an issue, they can pick up the phone. They want to know that someone is developing a platform to this simplification to make it so easy that I can go on an app and I can push a button and I can send money from point A to point B. That I can go lease my vehicle. That I can go get a mortgage, and there's going to be someone that understands the financial structure to help me borrow money to go buy a property. There's going to be, but the infrastructure that now supports all of these entities is going to shrink down considerably in order to facilitate, because much of the process is now moving into this automation, through the decentralization of these mechanics. And to me, it's that's exciting, because then all of the money that is spent in order to support that massive behemoth infrastructure goes away, and there's more money on the table. That's why being able to invest your money through a decentralized structure pays you more money, because you're getting rid of all the fat in the middle. Now, there can't just be one. And that's where, going back to the whole original premise of all of this, is that in the beginning, it was just Bitcoin. Then this premise and notion that somehow when Ethereum launched, that, this Ethereum Foundation maybe had some bigger names behind it. Maybe there was some political connection behind it. But they come to the table, and all of a sudden, what's happening? Why is it that they're talking about Ethereum, as though it was the only legitimate, uh, asset of its time, the only a legitimate, uh, innovative technology developed on the blockchain, offering a digital asset, and developing these why was it Ethereum? They do their ICO, and they drop, asset to people, but somehow then they move forward. And, so what's going on with that? It's kind of crazy. So we're going to get into Deaton's tweets here now to get in, because I think there's some really good info in there. So Citizen is saying, "Hey Jeff, did you see Jake fighting apology at the end of?" I did not see that. I saw the video pop up. I didn't get to watch it, but that'd be interesting. I don't know who. I didn't see that. Didn't see the apology on that. So Glad Insurance instance, you're right. This lawsuit's rigged. Ripple gets small victories, but the SEC gets the important decisions. Also, how does the SEC keep getting away with the non-compliance? So that's interesting. If the judge is asking for something, why is it that they can keep moving away? And it's amazing. So I'm looking through some of your conversation here. SEC isn't going to agree on full clarity, and Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse made clear they were not going to settle without full clarity. And that's El Jefe brings up a solid point, which is why Chip and I also agree that there's, very doubtful there'll be a settlement, mainly because the two parties are so far apart, and so when you have the SEC coming in and basically arguing that, that they want a specific outcome, and that the CEOs and the attorneys from Ripple are also, very far on the other side, making a very clear statement that they don't want just a settlement, that has to have a complete outcome with full clarity in the, not just for Ripple, but for XRP as an asset class, but cryptocurrency as a whole. They see themselves now as being on the front lines for cryptocurrency. And I think that is extremely meaningful. And so when we see John Deaton, filing suit against the SEC on the behalf of retail investors for XRP, that also is extremely meaningful, not just for those that hold XRP, but for all people within the cryptocurrency space. People should be, coming to the table and monitoring and watching everything that happens in both cases, the SEC v. Ripple, because the outcome of that case is going to have extreme impact on the cryptocurrency industry at large, especially in the United States. So everybody should be watching intently on that outcome and hoping that it doesn't go to, pure settlement without clarity. They hope that it comes to a full ruling with clarity. in favor, of Ripple and in favor of XRP, as an asset. And the same thing, on Deaton's side, as he goes, and there has to be an outcome where the SEC can't continue to pick winners from losers and kind of make it up as they go along and kind of navigate, along a course and have a power grab. Or, and this is what we're getting into right now with Deaton's tweets, but make statements that then you fall back on and say, well, those were my personal statements. Those weren't made in a professional capacity while you're being invited to a speech to speak because of your professional capacity. They didn't invite individuals to come speak that are representing the SEC. Nobody would care to hear you speak if you did not have that position. So, and maybe they want to bring you on a different topic completely that had nothing to do with that. Maybe Hinman was in a photography club and he's an astonishing photographer. And the photography club said, hey, we want to invite you to come and speak about your photography because you do such a great job. And then when he comes there, he's giving his opinion on maybe the import of, specific cameras. He's using knowledge, that he has, but he's not referencing, the SEC policy in terms of his photography because they invited him there because of his photographic skills. So he's there to speak about that. But now they invite him to talk about financial topics because of his position with the SEC. And then while he's speaking about these financial topics, he references the we's, meaning that we at the SEC. And then he tries to fall back on, well, no, that was just personal opinion. Even I made the statement that many of the opinions are going to be personal. Well, if they're personal, then don't reference professional. Don't say, here's my personal opinion because we, meaning the SEC, see it a certain way. And so that's what's going to come out, in depth. Again, like someone earlier on said, if it's not redacted, are they going to have to redact everything from that, or now they're, compelled to release the whole thing in its entirety? I mean, it's kind of interesting. So to say the least, right? So here, this is good, Steve. So Steve Higgins, 100% spot on, right? Regardless of what country you're in, regardless of what asset you're invested in, you need to continue the pressure on the elected officials because the unelected officials, those that are at the SEC, you can put some pressure on them, but they don't care about you. Gary Gensler doesn't care about you. You don't have any real sway over him directly. You're not going to be able to vote him out of office necessarily. But if you want to vote him out of office and you want to approach it the right way, it's congressional representation that's going to remove him from office eventually. You put Congress in place, right? You put the right senators, you put the right congressional representatives in office, and they are going to bring the right bills to the table. And those bills are then going to be pushed to committee and they're going to be voted on. They're going to be discussed and they're going to be passed through the system to get signed off on. And so that is really, really important, but you have to put pressure on all the politicians. Now, when we talk about pressure on politicians, it's not just at the federal level because you have to put pressure on your local politicians. Look at the mayor of Miami. Look at what's going on in Miami in terms of development within the crypto space. The mayor of Miami gets it, and that's at the city level. So if you can put a little pressure and discussion at the city level, think about what you can accomplish. Those individuals are more readily available. Congressional representatives aren't necessarily available, but you know who is? Their staff. You can pick up the phone. You can do a search, no matter what town you're in the U.S. Do a search. find your congressperson and find their local office. And then, I don't know if there's, because of what's been going on lately and the shutdowns and the whatever, go and visit that office. Go and get to know the people at that office. Typically, the office is open, especially right now as we're in an election cycle, right? Because November is the 22 elections. And so we're entering this election cycle. You can go into your congressional representative's office. You can get to know the people there. You can even set up, time to talk to them. You can call them on the phone. You can call their Washington office. If you call their local office, these are people just like you in the area that are volunteering to assist in that office. And then you can, get to know some of those people, get to know the staff. Look for somebody that's running for office. Get to know those people. Go volunteer a little time. Come in and help. Do whatever. Get to know those people, and talk about, find a way to talk about crypto. Sometimes just over the phone, talking to the staff. But there are mechanisms to really help, facilitate. Same thing at the state rep level. Same thing at the city level. So I know I've been talking a lot. You guys got a lot of a lot of good comments here. I did mean to throw this up. So you got Rough Freaking. What is going on? I appreciate that. When this alt season kicks off, hope people's bags are packed, because the alt season is going to pick up again. The crypto space is going to pick up again. There's always, ebbs and tides in the movement. And we see that there's a lot going on, right? So I wait. I can't believe how far behind I am in the commentary, but I'll put this one up, the last one up. But hydroponics. So Alan, what is up? Thank you, Jeff, for putting all the hard work in and doing these videos for this amazing community we have here. My family and I greatly appreciate what you and Chip are doing. We appreciate you as well for everything. I love the comments here, because we try to talk and read the comments at the same time as it's going through, and it's really amazing. It's really amazing to see the conversation. And Chip and I always say, we have by far the smartest, the best in the crypto space, on YouTube, right here, right here in this space, commenting. And it's a whole different show. If I just sat here, and went through and read some of the conversation, this is, very, very, meaningful. And so a lot of substance over here. So it's good stuff. Yep. Hang on. All right, here we go. All right, let's bring up, let me go to, oh wait, just refreshed. Let me pull that down. All right, here we go. Got to share my screen first and foremost. Otherwise, not going to work. All right, so first and foremost, let me pull up one tweet from Hester Peirce. There we go. So I like how this one starts off, right? Per CFTC, CFTC should fine-tune its rulebook, often a hard and tedious task, because responding to technological developments and ongoing market dynamics primarily through enforcement is neither good for the marketplace nor sustainable for the agency. Applies equally to the SEC. Now, Hester Peirce is a commissioner of the SEC. Now, discussing what the CFTC needs to do, right? So the CFTC needs to fine tune its rule book. Well, you know what? The SEC also needs to fine tune its rule book. Now, I like enforcement. Now, what is one of the things that Daddy G is always saying? Daddy G is always focused. One of the pillars, one of the key pillars of his job, according to Daddy G, is enforcement. The enforcement pillar, the pillar of enforcement. Now, I don't know. Chip read and I read, the objective or the mission statement of the SEC to help protect retail investors. Enforcement, not one of the pillars. It's not highlighted. It's not underscored. It's assumed that the body, the SEC, is an enforcement body, meaning that it's there to help protect retail. It's there to help direct companies to make sure that they're not in breach of security law. They're there to help, assist, guide, but enforce is the wrong way. 100% the wrong way. And this is the vernacular that Daddy G has chosen based on enforcement. Again, this is falling in line with the current administration that is in place at this point in time. Enforcement. That is exactly how they choose to do things. And that is going to be how they continue to do things until 22, when there's a huge roadblock in their place that will help slow down their enforcement efforts. Enforce. They're the enforcers based on how they want you to think, how they want you to act, what they want you to do, how they want you to run your company, how they want you to treat your employees. They want to enforce it based on their vision, not based on what's good for the market, not what's good for the individual, not what's good for the agencies even. It's an undoing. And so Hester Peirce is bringing that up both for the CFTC and also for the SEC, and primarily the SEC. So the CFTC needs to fine-tune their rule book in order to accommodate the technological development of the crypto space. And I think it's spot on. It's said while it's unsaid. And that is very, very important. And that's exactly why Chip is also saying that Hester Peirce is correct. The CFTC should be dealing with crypto because it's not a security. And they need to fine tune their rule book to take it away from this enforcement nature of the SEC. 100% spot on. So let's move on. Let's move on with life. All right, let's go. Cursor is going all over the place. Let's move on. Here we go. Okay, so let's go into the Deaton tweet. Why is it refreshing? All right, John Deaton, right? So, whistleblower alert. Sunday Saucy deserves some money. Okay, so I think Bill Henman could have used some legal advice before signing the sworn declaration filed by the SEC. If his speech reflected only his personal opinion and was not guidance by the SEC, he's in violation of Title V. Uh-oh. What is Title V? Let's see. The use of public office for private gain. Interesting. How many elected officials or employed officials in government are guilty in the use of the public office for private gain? I would have to say there's probably quite a few. But let's see. An employee shall not use his public office for his own private gain, for the endorsement of any product, service, or enterprise, or for the private gain of friends, relatives, or persons with whom the employee is affiliated in a non-governmental capacity, including nonprofit organizations of which the employee is an officer or a member, and persons with whom the employee has or seeks employment or business relations. The specific prohibitions set forth in paragraph A through D of this section apply this general standard, but are not intended to be exclusive or to limit the application of this section. So there's obviously a lot in here, right? But that first paragraph highlights and underscores what they should not do. An employee should not use or permit the use of government position or title or any authority associated with his public office to endorse any product, service, or enterprise except in furtherance of statutory authority to promote products. And I'm sure it goes on and on and on. But this is really, really, critical. So now as we get in, Nicola John, it's very clear they were in violation of 5. Use of public office for private gain. Why has this not been pursued? Well, let's find out what John said, right? So let's go through and we'll see all of the comments that John put on this. Now, this is interesting. So now we get into that. The speech was intended to express my own personal views. This is Hinman. To the best of my knowledge, the commission had not taken at that time and still has not taken any position or expressed a view as to whether offers and sales of Ether constituted offers and sales of securities. Now, John brings up the documentation showing how he signed it, showing in the case, the declaration, showing what we just read, Title 5. John is now going to highlight get rid of this. Why is this still here? Can you guys see it? You can see it. Let me just, oh, it's highlighting over there. It can't. All right, I'll just highlight it. There we go. So you can't use public office for private gain. An employee should not use his public office for his own private gain for the endorsement of any product, everything we just read. Now, his firm was a member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. Interesting. The EEA, the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, is a member-led industry organization whose objective is to drive the use of enterprise Ethereum and mainnet Ethereum blockchain technology as an open standard to empower all enterprise. Now, that's an organization. There's an affiliation. And so now let's go down. Hinman collected $15 million while at the SEC. He claims it was retirement benefits, but he unretired immediately, going back to Simpson Thatcher after leaving the SEC. Even if it was strictly retirement benefits, his speech benefited his firm and its clients. John Deaton, he goes on. If the law has always been crystal clear, as Clayton and Gensler claim, then there was no reason for Hendler to give the speech declaring Ether a non-security. The SEC claims the speech had nothing to do with the SEC guidance to the markets. Hinman might want to seek counsel. This is John Deaton. Now, let's go on. There was some interesting commentary on this. So Jeremy Hogan, everyone knows Jeremy Hogan, attorney, makes videos. We've seen many of his videos. He has some great videos. He's been here on the chain. When John Deaton starts talking about a Title 5 violation, you know things are getting serious. Now, this is important, right? And this is also why, starting out the whole conversation, I kind of prefaced where the space is, this emphasis and focus on Bitcoin, the development of this space, the movement of this entire space into kind of where the banks are resistant. Government is resistant. Big institutions are resistant, right? And then you have the support mechanisms that are trying to drag this out as long as humanly possible to try to delay the inevitable move towards decentralization of financial assets. Now, within the space, within these firms, within the financial institutions, they all have a stake for the delay. They also have a stake always trying to pick winners and losers as they look at the tech space, those they invest in. Now, they're even talking about there's a patent mafia within big tech crushing and stepping on patents. Now, if they're going to be doing that, why would that not also ring true for the financial space? Why wouldn't there be a financial mafia, so to speak, that is also dictating the ebb and flow of the banking space and the financial institution space and the movement of money, what you're going to invest in? If there's a new tech, wouldn't you want to then make a decision as these big institutions and say, we're going to put our money behind this tech. And when we put our money behind this tech, this is the technology that is going to grow up because we're putting our emphasis. And as they try to crush other technologies at the same time, think about how they try to dismantle and crush Amazon in the early days, bad mouthing it, coming out and undermining it. The media, the financial institutions, many of the players in the space tried to undermine the development of what Amazon was becoming. And look at what it's become as it's overcome. And that story can ring true in many areas where some of these institutions actually overcome, but some of them don't. But in this scenario, they're looking at this brand new kind of baby asset class, and they understand where this asset class is going. They're smart people in all these positions. They see the direction that Bitcoin was moving things. They see the direction that Ethereum was moving things in the early years, and then they try to, make a decision on it. So I like how it goes down, some of the commentary, as we continue. Really, really important, overall. And that's why, I think as, John brings this to the case here. Stock, get him, John. I want vengeance for the way they decimated my long-term wealth search investment. Now, the thing is, in this scenario, what are they doing here? Right? They're making the statement, and what John is saying is that there was personal gain by pushing this narrative of Ethereum being, okay. And so, as we get into it, and so let's open, let me see if this one, yeah, here we go. So Hinman, on June 14, 2018, I delivered a public speech entitled Digital Asset Transactions When Howie Met Gary Plastic, the speech. Now, in the speech, he makes the statements where he says there was a disclaimer. My remarks are mine alone, not necessarily those of the commission, the commissioners, or the staff. Not necessarily. How about not? But that's not the point, because in the speech, and we can go back and everyone's heard it, there's direct reference to the we's. We've decided. We've determined. It's not my opinion. So you can't say it's my opinion and then go in and say, here's what we've determined. And we meaning the SEC, because that's who he was working for. So it is available. And the videos have been heard, multiple times. And there's been multiples. But this speech is now also when they try to make sure that, it's now being presented in front of the court. It has to be brought in front. And there needs to be more discussion over it. But what John is also referencing with Title V is the direct benefit from that speech to not just the individual, but those around that individual by some of the statements. Now, you can also make assumption from that statement. You come out and say, okay, not professional. These are just my opinions, but you represent one of the major financial bodies in the U.S., in U.S. government. So it's a very fine line that you walk down. Right? The Texas speech, the Securities and Exchange Commission disclaims responsibility for any private publication or statement of any SEC employee or commissioner. The speech expresses the author's views and does not necessarily reflect those of the commission, etc. I did not reference, and no one was saying that he referenced Ripple during that speech. However, instead, my speech expressed my view that current offers and sales of Ethereums are not security transactions. So that's what he was referencing. My view is based on my understanding of the present state of Ether, the Ethereum network, and its decentralized structure. Now, it's interesting because then fast forward and they say, well, one of the reasons why Ethereum could also not be considered a security is because maybe in the beginning it was, but now it's fully developed. But we know now that it's not fully developed. The gas fees are out of control. The structure out of control. They're trying to make it better. They're trying to fine tune it. They're trying to bring it back into mainstream use. So obviously it wasn't a complete product. It was a product, so there's so many misconception being presented. And in a new technology, things are very, people like using that word fluid, but things are very fluid. Things are changing and developing and expanding. All these new things that we were talking about earlier, like the NFTs and the staking and the wrapping and being able to earn, all this stuff is fluid. It's kind of growing and evolving. It's evolving. It's going through an evolution. Money is going through an evolution. Our financial infrastructure going through an evolution. There's always going to be resistance to positive evolution when some individuals or some groups within that evolution are going to lose. I'm sure that in the beginning, when when people realized that that cars were here to stay, and the horse industry overall for transport and stagecoaches and horse whips, horse buggies, that technology was shrinking. The evolution over to new modern transportation. There was an evolution. You had to get on board with that evolution because it was better for people in general. It's better for the development of technology within society. The movement away from typewriters over to technology. The evolution of retail from stores to online to potentially back to stores again. The evolution of television. How many companies have gone out of business as a result of the evolution of television? How many computer companies have gone out of business because of the evolution of computers? How many phone manufacturers have gone out of business because of the evolution of technology? We just saw BlackBerry shut down support of their entire ecosystem for their older phones about a week or so ago. BlackBerry was the state of the art. Everybody wanted a BlackBerry so they could carry their email with them everywhere they went. BlackBerry now gone. Now it's iOS, it's Amazon. Microsoft lost momentum, never truly got any advancement within the mobile space. Microsoft had everything to lose and lost. It was theirs to lose. They let Google take over with Android. I said Amazon. Android. Microsoft let Android take over the marketplace because Microsoft didn't launch fast enough, and then their solution sucked. They had their original evolution of phones. I don't know if you guys remember. They were putting Windows Windows PE, not PE. I think maybe it was PE, but they had a Windows version that was going on phones, basically just Windows, and there was some flip, where you had the screen. I remember years ago, so back in it was like 2005, I had one of those flip phones where you flip the screen up and you had a full keyboard and you had Windows and you had some, access. It was a little slow, but it was kind of cool at the time. But think about that evolution. AOL gone, right? It's moving. This space is developing fast, but within this development, things that we probably didn't observe was how certain entities were picking winners from losers, putting support behind certain new technologies, especially when it has to do directly with business. And so that's what we're seeing here. And now how do you distance yourself? How do you distance yourself from this? You're giving a speech, and this is where John is pointing this out, the benefit of so many around. So the speech was intended to, well, it didn't. Whatever the intention was in your mind, it didn't come out that way because you can't use, during my preparation of the speech, I discussed my thoughts with other commission employees as part of the commission's ongoing deliberation about whether offers and sales of Ether constituted securities. To the best of my knowledge, the commission had not taken at that time and still has not taken any position or expressed a view as to whether offers. Now, they've made their statements. Both Clayton and Hinman made statements along those lines. So it's interesting. Now, are these statements coming back to haunt them? And that's where John is really bringing a lot of this back. This is where the Ripple attorneys are bringing a lot of this back into perspective. And now, as you see the SEC, why is it they're singling out one entity, not all entities? Why didn't they go after Ethereum? With everything, Ethereum did an ICO. They dropped money. They sold the asset for direct benefit in the Ethereum Foundation efforts in the early days. Now, that could be considered a direct security. Why didn't they go after them first? Why did they go after Ripple first? When, as you develop and you start looking, there is no direct tie-in to people, but buying XRP and seeing a direct benefit from Ripple. There's some statements, and so maybe at some point, and that's where even John has referenced, maybe in those early days, there could be some connection back. But the SEC trying to make claim that it existed over the extended length and period of time, all the way to current date. That's where John got involved in this whole thing. Is they overreached. They're overzealous, reaching all the way out to current time, to now, and it's incorrect. Now they've gone after library. They went after kin or Kick with a kin token, and the way Kick had it structured, it was a security, and it was, I think, very obviously and easier to prove. But then in their outcome, even in that case, Kick paid a $5 million fine or $3 million fine, whatever it was, and there was no clarity. Zero. Nothing came out of it in terms of clarity for the space. And that is not what is going to happen in this scenario, because the powers that be at Ripple and the attorneys at Ripple want full clarity as an outcome of this case. You're going to go through all of this for a year in, and money, the amounts of money they've spent on their legal team, and they have the best and the brightest. All those people, all this time, is you're not going to spend millions and millions of dollars on legal fees only to settle with no clarity. Makes no sense. And the powers that be right now, with Daddy G and others, the statements that come out of there, the agency with the enforcement, the pillars of enforcement, are not settlement type of language. They're more aggressive in nature, meaning that we're going to hold you accountable to our vision regardless. And we're going to push until we win or we lose. Now, if they're going to push till they win or lose, now we know that the SEC has lost many cases. It goes back to the bottom of their webpage somewhere into obscurity. And if you dig in, you'll find that they've lost lawsuits, but you don't find them. They're not highlighted. Oh, we lost, and now let's discuss it. Nope. It goes down into the dustbin of history, into obscurity, and then they move on, and then that's it. So how is that going to impact then their oversight and enforcement of the crypto space at large? And so if there's a battle where the SEC wants more power, and as Hester Peirce was saying, that the CFTC needs to step up and fine tune their rule book, because the CFTC needs to take a leadership role in everything that's happening and cannot allow it to sit with the SEC and allow the SEC to dictate and make determination as to whether or not this asset class is a security or not, when it's not. And I think that is, pure, so anyhow, that's it. I mean, that's a lot. I went way over time here, 10 minutes over time. But if you guys are brand new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Why? Because when you subscribe to the channel, obviously you get more content like this. You get notified every time we go live. Very beneficial. I mean, today, for some reason, notifications didn't go out, but it helps us. You want to support On the Chain, hit the subscribe button, and then check us out. We stream Sunday through Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have by far the best and the brightest, the smartest in the crypto YouTube space gather here 6 days a week with us. You guys are outstanding. Look forward to seeing you guys back on tomorrow night, Sunday. And don't forget, set the reminder, because Chip is working on the thumbnail, and we're going to get that out there. Eleanor Terrett, Monday evening, she's going to be with us at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to discuss some of the research on this exact topic that we discussed today. So you guys are awesome, and look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. I'm out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.